My only crime was being happy. That's all I did.
I hate you.
Holy shit, Danny. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by James Chisanti, and we are back here once again to review AEW Dynamite. Today was Winter is Coming, and considering it's supposed to drop into the high 20s tonight, it's certainly here in New York, but apparently down in Texas, it didn't really feel like it, as we had what was, I thought, a good Dynamite, but I don't think a good branded Dynamite comparatively to some of the past ones. But go ahead, James. I think you had a couple of thoughts on that.
This really didn't stick to the theme, and beyond the theme, it didn't feel important. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the episode of Dynamite we got tonight. We're going to get into it. I enjoyed a lot of the wrestling. I enjoyed a lot of the story development. But Winter is Coming is associated with some very big moments in AEW history. Sting's debut, if I'm not mistaken, that's when Kenny first won the AEW title.
Yes, against Moxley.
Some very big moments. And that did not happen tonight. I think that has to do with the fact that our pay-per-view schedule is changing. That it was a placeholder for pay-per-views in the past, but now, for example, we have World's End at the end of the month. We had a pay-per-view last month as well. So it's not just this mega show pay-per-view placeholder anymore. It's just a named episode. And I hope that's not the case moving forward with some of the other shows that AEW has named in the past. Obviously, there's Grand Slam. I think Fight for the Fallen is another. Yep. So I hope they are able to treat these events like the events they should be. But beyond that nitpick, this was an enjoyable episode of Dynamite.
Yeah, I think we're not going to get stuff like Sting debuting at Winter is Coming anymore. But they should add a little more to it. I do think Grand Slam is an exception because it is such a big show and such a big stadium that they have to put a good show on for it. But you're right. I think what we used to have, where it was quarterly pay-per-views, and then in between that, like the midway point, they would have one of these themed episodes, and they would kind of build to it as a mini pay-per-view on TV. I think those days are gone because we're not necessarily at monthly pay-per-views yet, but we're getting, it feels like at least 6, maybe now 8 a year at minimum. Yeah. So I'm not sure how many we had this past year, but we even have some that are a week apart. So we're definitely getting more, and I think that is going to slightly diminish these branded Dynamites. But like you said, this was a good episode. So let's jump into it. And we actually started the show with an in-ring promo as Samoa Joe came out, and he was obviously pissed off after MJF was attacked last week by an unnamed assailant. All we saw was him laid out, and a shattered beer bottle was around him. So Joe came out and he insinuated that the attack was perpetrated by, Hangman Adam Page, saying after their confrontation and then the subsequent assault that Joe looked all over for Hangman and he wasn't able to find him. This prompts Hangman to come out, and he tells Joe that if he thinks that he's the devil, that he should just say it to his face like the man he thinks Joe is. Page doesn't give a damn about the devil or the bromance or any of the other bullshit, but if Joe thinks it's him, then Joe should step up and do something about it. Joe responds to Page that if he came here, he might have come out here thinking that Joe was trying to play detective, but he came out here playing the role of executioner. They start to step to each other when they're both interrupted by freaking Roderick Strong. By Roderick Strong in the Kingdom. And Strong comes down, and after reminding Hangman that he was once Strong's young boy, says that he tries to lay out evidence to Samoa Joe that it's actually MJF who is the devil. Hangman tries to get a word in, but Strong pushes him away, saying that he's trying to talk to his best friend by proxy, Samoa Joe. So Page wheels him around and lays in a right hand, sending Roderick out of the ring. Page and Joe then start jaw-jacking, and they are separated by referee Aubrey Edwards, who comes in as Roddy and Hangman are about to have a match. And as Joe leaves and Hangman's attention is on him, Roderick attacks Hangman from behind, and their match starts. We'll get to the match in a minute, James, but I thought this was a very cool change of pace setup for the show. We got quite a bit of character work done in a very small amount of time, and it set up to the end of the show, which we'll obviously get to at the end of our show. But I like this. I like this introduction to the episode.
No, absolutely. It's a change of pace. You know, we typically start Dynamites with wrestling. And granted, it's not the hard rule that it used to be, but it's definitely a little bit more of a change of pace. And I enjoy that. You know, it changes up the monotony. And these two guys, I think they played their roles really well here. Well, these three guys plus the Kingdom, they played their roles really well. Joe being the confident but pissed off enforcer / challenger to the title. Hangman just so done and so frustrated with everything going on in AEW. And I really want to get into Hangman tonight. We'll do that, you know, top of the show, end of the show. But I do want to get into Hangman. And then Roderick Strong doing what he's been doing best and inserting himself in places that he doesn't belong, causing trouble in places that he shouldn't even be a part of. So I think all three guys really nailed it. I love the callback to Roddy and Hangman's past in Ring of Honor, where Hangman was Roddy's not sidekick, but whipping boy for a little bit. So really cool stuff. And yeah, I it's very tough to talk about this segment without talking about what happened at the top of in the final minutes of the show, but I will do my best. But yeah, good way to get started and keep the energy high even without a match.
Yeah, and I thought this was interesting placement too, because we didn't get a lot of promos tonight. This was a very wrestling heavy episode. I feel like we only got one other in-ring promo, and that was fairly extended, which we'll get to later. And it was maybe a little too extended. But I thought it was interesting because it was a wrestling heavy episode. They got the promo, I don't want to say out of the way first, but they did it first, and it led directly into a match. So I really did enjoy this setup for the match. The match, as I mentioned before, was Hangman Adam Page versus Roderick Strong. Obviously, Roddy spent a lot of time working over Hangman's back. It's kind of his thing. Eventually, towards the end of the match, after escaping out of a stronghold, Hangman is able to counter Roddy's follow-up and set up for the buckshot. However, out on the apron, he is distracted by the Kingdom, as one of them distracts the ref and the other one, starts holding his leg. He eventually fights both of them off, taking them out with the moonsault to the outside. Page gets back into the ring, and he counters Roddy's fireman carry attempt with a roll-up. That's a really nice roll-up, I might add, that Strong kicks out of. Page then counters a jumping knee strike and lands a lariat with his left arm before getting Strong up and hitting a dead eye for the W. Not the best dead eye, but I'm going to give Roddy the benefit of the doubt because of his neck. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I'd rather have it look not as good and protect Roderick's neck, but then have it look good. And have
I caught it too. I caught it
honestly,
too. Honestly,
that aside, I thought this was a good match, and I don't really care about that. It was just a side note. I enjoyed this match, James, and I don't think I've seen these guys wrestle, so this was a cool matchup for me. I know they have a past, but this was a really cool, fresh matchup for me, at least.
Yeah, no, this is a fresh matchup in AEW. It has been years since we've gotten this matchup. It has happened before, as I alluded to in Ring of Honor, but that was years ago. And the Hangman of today is not the Adam Page of back then. So both of these men are at very different heights than they were when they interacted in the past. And I like that. I like seeing stars from different stars interacting with each other in different eras. It shows evolution. It could show growth, and it definitely showed the growth for Hangman if you've been following him as long as I have. So fun matchup. I very much as we both saw and maybe weren't thrilled with that not so beautifully executed Deadeye. I did enjoy Roddy's counter of the Deadeye earlier in the match when he kicks off of Hangman's back and is using the ropes to get away from it. I don't think I've seen the Deadeye countered that way, and it was a unique reversal that a pro like Roderick Strong would, of course, be able to execute. Good matchup, hard hitting matchup. Roddy is one of those guys that for so long we all commented, oh, he's so good, but he doesn't have a character. Who cares? He's boring. And I don't think he's boring. I genuinely never found him to be boring, but I understood the criticisms. But now we have a great wrestler with a funny character. And I really do want to see how far this can take him. I know I don't ever expect him to be AEW World Champion, but I would love to see him with an international title reign or a TNT title reign. I think he's more than capable of putting on banger after banger after banger. I thought tonight was a very fun match, and all of his matches are so fast paced, and this followed suit. This didn't disappoint. So I think all the right players were in the right spots here. Hangman needed this win. This was his first matchup since his loss to Swerve at the pay-per-view. Roddy will not be hurt by a loss, and immediately, of course, he jumps back into his neck brace after the bell rings. You know,
it's so good.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And my only complaint is that I do wish the Kingdom were more than just background players. I do wish this elevated them a little bit more, but baby steps.
They are playing their role so well, though. Like, I want to give them a lot of credit for it.
They're doing a fantastic job, and I do think that people are recognizing that. But I would like to see that translate into bigger opportunities for them. But time will tell. I'm willing to be patient, and I don't know. I'm going to do my best to not get into the main event segment, but I will say I am not as confident as I was even a week ago that Roddy and the Kingdom are part of the Devil's goons. It's possible. It's very possible, but I'm not as lock, stock, barrel confident as I was a week ago.
Yeah, I have my theories on that as well, but I am enjoying everything Roderick and the Kingdom are doing, at least outside of that at the moment. You did mention Roddy maybe getting an international or TNT title run in the future. Do you think maybe he could also perhaps be Ring of Honor champ again, or maybe he gets the pure title or the TV champ? I forgot that's the TV champ too.
It's certainly possible. The TV championship is vacated right now. The pure championship is back in the hands of Wheeler Yuta.
I only roll my eyes because I know why.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
A lot of belts are up in the air for him. I think that the AEW title scene is a little heel heavy right now. But I mean, granted, Orange is a face, and every week I'm not sure if he's going to be a face or a heel, but I don't think Roddy's the guy to take the title off OC. But I would not be shocked if by the end of 2024, Roderick Strong is a champion in either company.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And he definitely deserves it. And you know he could be a champion, especially in Ring of Honor. I assume he had plenty of titles back in the original run. So we'll see what ends up the future for him. And I know commentary brought this up, and I didn't really agree with it necessarily, but it's, I think, something they're going to start working in. Hangman was a little more aggressive tonight. They mentioned it when he was biting Roddy's forehead, and they said it was a result perhaps of his match with Swerve. I thought it was gone back to when he was facing against Moxley. I feel like he's been doing that since then. But the fact that they mentioned it, I'm curious to see if we see a bit more of an aggressive Hangman in the future.
I also want to point out the hypocrisy because they criticized Hangman for it, but then complimented Andrade for going after Bryan's eye on Collision, saying, hey, if it's there, you got to take advantage. So some consistency, guys, just a little consistency.
Well, I think this was more of you're seeing a more violent Hangman, and I don't think they were necessarily admonishing him for it. I think they were just pointing it out, as opposed to Andrade, where they were like, "You mean the guy's kind of wearing a bullseye on his eye? You have to do it." So
you don't have to do it, Andrade.
Yeah, you don't have to, but I think. Yeah, Taz was like, I would have done it, and that's Taz's job. And Shivani's like, I wouldn't have done it, but I understand why somebody would. Like, you got to win these matches.
Yeah.
Which actually kind of foretold a bit of what would happen later in the show, but we'll get to that in a bit. After this, we followed up with a Continental Classic Blue League match. This is the first Blue League match we've had on Dynamite. And it was good. It was Brody King against the aforementioned Andrade El Idolo.
Boo, Andrade.
This is the first Blue League match I've seen. I know I keep saying I'm going to go back and watch them, and I'm probably lying to you.
The intent is there. I know that. I know that you would love to. But yeah.
Saturdays. Well, at least college football is over. Well, it's not over, but they're in the bowl season. So Saturdays are clearing up a little bit.
Reason. There's always going to be a reason.
Well, I was about to say, but because there's no college football on Saturdays, NFL's kicking off on Saturday this week. So, which is really annoying because it's the start of the playoffs in fantasy. But I digress. I only bring this up to say this is the first time I realized Brody King has been wrestling in a cast on his wrist, or at least at this point, a heavily taped wrist. So good for him. It's really cool that he's been able to battle through it. But I like this match. The crowd was very into it for both guys. Everyone loves barking at Brody. And being in Texas, I think a lot of people were behind Andrade. This match ended as they both battled up to the top ropes, and Brody was able to knock Andrade off. But in the process, Andrade grabbed the protective covering of the turnbuckle bar, so to speak, or the rod, rather, and he fell off. However, Andrade was able to get back up. The two continued to hand fight. Brody set up probably for something along the lines of a superplex off the top. But Andrade, in a very smart move, took the back of Brody's head, jumped down, slammed Brody's head into the exposed turnbuckle rod, and essentially knocked him out.
He essentially did the hammerlock DDT up there.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, it was kind of a tough angle. I thought he did it, but they didn't say it on commentary, so I wasn't 100%. Either way, it was something of that ilk. And then he went back, knocked Brody to the floor, picked him up, hit another hammerlock DDT in the ring for good measure, and was able to pick up the win. This gets Andrade up to, I believe, 9 points, and Brody King remains at 6. So I don't know all the numbers for that, but James, I like this match. Like I said, it was good to see Blue League guys and Collision guys in general, especially because, like I said, I don't fucking watch Collision nearly as often as I should. Yes, this was Danny's, right? As we said at the top of our show here tonight, it didn't feel like winter is coming. The only reason you knew that was because it was on the screen in the back. I don't even think commentary mentioned it. So, a little off-putting. But as far as the wrestling goes, James, I enjoyed this match. Like I said, it was nice to see these guys. And they had really good chemistry together. A lot of good counters and just a lot of hard-hitting action. Andrade still has the best back elbow in the business. And I really enjoyed this, as I have, honestly, all of the Continental Classic matches.
Why did Lee beat Claudio if he's just going to lose to Andrade? Just to answer that question real quick, Brody's has so far had a very good and dominant tournament.
Wrong Brody. He said Lee.
Oh, damn. I didn't even pick up on that. Yeah. Rip. But Brody has had a very dominant tournament so far, and one loss isn't going to kill his tournament aspirations, or maybe it will in the long run. But
find out a lot more on Saturday, because I think he might be able to be eliminated on Saturday.
This has been a much more well-balanced tournament bracket than the Gold League, in my opinion. The Gold League was always going to be pretty one-sided. We talked about this last week, but I think they really have done a much better job on this side of creating that sense of unpredictability. Anybody could win. So I like that from tournaments. And I don't think anybody has looked bad necessarily. Maybe on the blue side, maybe you can make an argument for Eddie Kingston, and probably you can make an argument for Daniel Garcia.
Yeah, but the Eddie thing is more storyline driven.
Yeah.
As is, I say, I said, so is the Jay Lethal thing. But Eddie, I think, has a decent chance of coming back. So
no, absolutely. I mean, let's see.
I think he's going to sweep, or I don't know what he did last week, so maybe not. But I think he might end up sweeping his last 3 matches and get up to 9 points and possibly get into the blue league or the blue league finals there. So I think it's way more wide open, like you were saying.
So Eddie defeated Claudio last week. So he is 3 points out of 3 matches, which isn't great. Theoretically, yes, he could come back.
Yeah, but I think he will.
I hope not. I love Eddie, but I want this to be a teachable moment for him. And I want Brian to win. But no, so we're still talking about the matchup itself, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brody has been looking great. Andrade, I think they're trying to butter him up to stick around. I personally, I'm at a point where I don't care. Nothing. It's not even that I have anything against him. I just don't care. But no, I like this matchup. I actually really like the matchups tonight on both sides of the bracket, the gold and blue. This was, if you're gonna beat Brody, this was a great way of doing it. It was a protected way of doing it. Andrade didn't cheat, but he didn't play clean or fair either. He used that exposed turnbuckle pad, and it worked. It worked in his advantage. So he was able to topple the big man without the big man going down to a normal offense. And he's now leading in the blue league. So exciting to see where this division goes. Excited to see where this side of the bracket goes. And I wish they had done this more. I wish we had gotten a mix of gold and blue.
Yeah.
On Dynamite and Rampage and Collision. There have been small instances of some overlap, but I wish we had gotten blue on Dynamite a lot earlier than we did here.
I'm not even sure if we have had a gold league match over on Collision, but
well, we had some blue we had a blue matchup or 2 on Rampage.
Right.
And I think that was to accommodate Brian having missed some time due to the injury. But I would have liked there to have been, like you said, gold on Collision and more blue on Dynamite. But it is what it is. I hope this is a lesson they learned for next year if, this continues. So overall, good. Thumbs up to both of these men, even Andrade.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I understand it's a little more to just accommodate scheduling, in terms of, Dynamite guys are on Dynamite, Collision guys are on Collision. It's just a lot easier for them to, book their flights every week, a week out.
Yeah, same day.
It's going to be. Yeah. So I understand why it could be a little complicated. I don't know why this match ended up on Dynamite for whatever reason, but I'm glad it did. I really am.
Likewise. I will also say I really did enjoy, I really did enjoy seeing CJ Perry out there for even the few seconds. Miro has been a character that hasn't truly been able to find footing in AEW in a long time, which is a shame because of how good he is. And we were all waiting for this CJ Perry angle to go. And it's happening on Collision. Admittedly, it is happening on Collision. But I like seeing that managerial role in wrestling and not being a dominant force, like the Paul Heymans or the Don Callises, where they almost become the attraction in their own way. Yeah. CJ is just, she's got her storyline with Miro.
She certainly has the attraction.
Bonk, 2 minutes. But
it's a good play on words. Come on.
But I enjoy just seeing a manager or a valet be serve serve the role well and not overshadow talent. And I didn't feel like Andrade is being overshadowed.
Yeah, I would agree with that from what I've seen. I think we'll get the Miro and CJ stuff eventually. I very much like the sign tonight that says CJ Perry is the breadwinner, which I thought was good. But I really hope they figure out the proper path for Miro. I think he's got a pretty decent handle on what he wants to do. But there was a while there after, God's favorite champion lost. He didn't really have a direction.
Yeah.
But by lost, I mean he lost the title. He didn't really have too much of a direction. He went away for a while, and then he came back, and he's like, "My neck is fixed," and then he was gone again. So hopefully they are just in a little bit of a holding pattern until the tournament finishes, and then we can get going again with whatever's going to happen with him and CJ and perhaps Andrade and whoever else might be involved. A lot of the internet wants Dolph Ziggler to join up with her. So.
They have to acknowledge the cuckening, right?
I guess at some point, unless they really don't want to, like them being Miro and CJ. But
I feel like Miro is kind of pushing it now. His woman is managing other men, and like, not that she shouldn't, but I feel like this is Miro's idea.
This one feels like Miro's idea. His wife making out with other men seems perhaps like somebody else's.
I mean, have you seen Nick Nemeth? Have you seen Dolph Ziggler? I get it. He's a good-looking piece of man meat.
All right. On that, let's move on. After this, we went
2 minutes.
We went to a backstage interview where Renee Paquette was interviewing the Von Erich family. They were in town. They were in Texas, so they were in town, and obviously the Iron Claw is coming out, and MJF is reportedly in it, although I've heard he might have been cut.
But from what I've seen and heard, he's got a very small cameo in it now at this point.
Yeah, which sucks, but
I mean, he's playing Lance Von Erich. There's not a lot to say about Lance.
He was like the fake Von Erich, right? From what I understand. So it would have been
cousin. I think he's a cousin or something.
Well, hopefully we get to see him. I digress. Renee asked them how they're enjoying their time in AEW, and they start talking about how, they are enjoying their time in AEW, that there's a lot of old friends there. And then they are joined by Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, and Danhausen. Apparently, Orange has a tag match on Rampage. So after complimenting Renee's horse outfit, Orange asked the younger two Van Erichs if they would like to tag with him. Trent and Danhausen get a little ticked off at this, with Trent just saying that you betrayed us right in front of our eyes. What the hell? And Orange is like, dude, we're in Texas. It's the Von Erichs. Like, I have to. And they're like,
which is a fair argument. It's a fair point. Like, if you're gonna do it, at least he was fair about it.
Yeah, and they kind of acquiesce, and everybody hands in, and they do all that. So, but I only bring this up just because commentary mentioned it, which anytime commentary mentions something, I tend to think it's going to lead to something further. So we'll see. We've had our gnawing doubts about Orange Cassidy and his alignments recently. So we'll see if that ends up coming back around at some point. After that, we went to Kenny Omega coming out and then commercial. And then as we came back, Chris Jericho came out as the Golden Jets were out there to call out the World Tag Team Champions.
Don't you mean the Winnipeg Jets? Because that's what Kenny said.
That was a great slip up. And and he knew it immediately, because I feel like Chris and Kenny didn't actually have a script. Like, not that they ever
it didn't fucking feel like it.
But I don't think they had anything. I think they were just like, we're gonna go out there and completely wing this.
I'm gonna say something. I want you to do your breakdown of it. Of the four men that had a microphone tonight in that segment, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, Ricky Starks, Big Bill. Kenny is not known for being the best mic guy. He was the best of that group.
Even better, I thought Ricky handled himself fine.
Ricky has this bad habit that I've noticed lately of trying to act like nothing phases him, but which would be fine, but he delivers it so awkwardly that it's just like, okay, anyway. And it's like, this is a wrestling promo. You either got to really sell that it doesn't bother you, or you got to sell that it does and you're trying to hide it. It just, it feels like moving on to the next part of the script for me with Ricky. And I like Ricky a lot. I'm a big Ricky guy, but it's something I've noticed he's been doing a little bit lately. I noticed it with the back and forth he had with Edge, with Adam Copeland, like a month or so ago. And it's like that Stephanie McMahon, I'm never going to let you get one over on me in a promo. And I didn't like it with her, and I don't like it here with Ricky.
That's fair. And also, I thought Big Bill handled himself fairly well for Big Bill. But
yeah,
you're not all right. If that's how you feel about Ricky, which fair, Kenny did great tonight. Outside of the Winnipeg Jets thing, which again
he covered well.
Yes, not only did he cover it well, it's just hilarious that he would do that. But as we get into this, they being the Golden Jets, have been attacked by Starks and Big Bill the last few weeks, and they have missed time, which is why they haven't been on the show. So Jericho calls them out, and the two come out to the top of the ramp. The tag champs question Kenny why he trusts Jericho, with Ricky saying he sucks the life out of everything, which honestly, after Ricky's feud with him, I understand why he said that. And Bill said that nobody is going to be surprised when Jericho ends up betraying him. Kenny says that Chris knows that Kenny doesn't trust him, before going into Big Bill's past with the firm, saying it felt flaccid and perhaps maybe even a little bit soft. So then Kenny goes into saying that they're considering taking their shot at the tag titles at World's End. But Starks isn't too concerned about this, saying he defeated Jericho twice back in January. And then this whole thing just kind of goes off the rails because Jericho starts talking. And this turns into a Jericho name-calling session where he attempts to name the tag team of Starks and Big Bill, first calling them absolute assholes, and then Rick and the Dick, and before finally settling on Big Billy Starks, which nobody understood except me and you.
Yeah, what the
eventually, Jericho then goes on to call Starks a better dressed and less charismatic Enzo Amore.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
With Kenny throwing in, saying that at least Enzo got Big Bill over instead of stealing the spotlight. Or stealing all of the spotlight, I guess. Ricky gets pissed at this, or as pissed apparently as James says he can be, and saying that he thinks they crossed the line, and they'll see them at World's End, but it doesn't really matter because they're the best team, the tag team in the world, and it's going to take more than two Winnipeg scumbags to beat them. And then Kenny does the good night knock at the end bang thing, and yeah, this really got off the fucking rails, James.
Yeah. No, I you know me, I am probably the biggest Kenny mark. I think he was the only saving grace to this. Big Bill did his best, but I don't expect a lot from Big Bill in this category.
He had 2 sentences, and he did a very good job with those 2 sentences.
Did you talk about the firm and the flaccid?
Yes, you were checking your phone, but I did. That was a good line. Yeah, that was a funny line too, I thought.
Kenny did his best. Big Bill did his best. Ricky, man, he tried. He didn't do poorly. I will say that. I don't want to sound negative on him. He didn't do poorly. I expect better. Jericho was bad. I think all's being fair, Jericho wasn't good in this promo, in this segment, but I don't know who to blame on this. My genuine belief is they saw how Kenny, I don't know if you saw, but the ratings report for Collision, Kenny's segment was by far the highest rated segment of the show. It saw the biggest boost in numbers, and
his match versus Page, right?
Ethan Page, yes. And I think they wanted to stuff him into the show tonight just to capitalize on that, which granted poor because you didn't advertise him, you didn't promote him or anything, but I think that was the concept. They wanted to get him on TV again.
Yeah, it was a very late addition.
That's what it feels like. That's really what it feels like. So I'm happy the match is announced. I really want to get past it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think Kenny and Jericho are winning the tag titles from Big Bill and Ricky. I didn't think Big Bill and Ricky were going to win the tag titles, so what do I know? But I need... Ricky talked about it in the promo, calling Jericho a vampire, sticking his teeth into talent to leech onto them and get over through them. And I am tired of that happening with Kenny. I don't want it. Like, to give you perspective, Kenny Omega did really great numbers on Collision against a WWE Premium Live event against Ethan Page, a talent I really like.
Oh, it was NXT. I was like, what was last week? Okay, it was NXT. All right.
An NXT Premium Live event.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, because I almost went, and I was like,
So Kenny did really good numbers against all of those factors. Imagine if you put him in stuff people actually cared about. Man, the ratings would go back up.
Yeah, I mean, you put two Canadians against each other. Apparently, that works. But you put two Canadians with each other, team. And it's not. Yeah, this one's just not working.
He's from Winnipeg, you idiot.
Yeah, I just had a very random hot take in my head. If they do lose, maybe Kenny turns on Jericho. I think that would be a little fresher. I think Bill did mention that Jericho and Kenny have history of Jericho attacking Kenny and the Bucks' father, by the way. And maybe that ends up leading to, the Elite coming back together, although we don't really know what the Bucks are right now or what their plans are other than...
I can tell you where they're not. I can tell you where they're not. They're not supporting the fourth member of the Elite.
They're also not on being the Elite, RIP. But shout out to being the Dark Order. That has been really funny. I've enjoyed it. It took them a minute to get their stride, but it's been funny. That screw job shit.
It's starting to feel like... It's starting to feel like pandemic BTE.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
That Montreal screw job bit they did last week was so fucking funny. And they redid the whole wrestling in the shadows. That was great. So, yeah. Look, I don't know what to say about this promo. It had its moments, but for the most part, it was... Yeah. At least Billy Starks got a shout out, even though nobody got it. Except Excalibur.
All 10 people who watch Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it was Excalibur, you, me, and the other 8 people. Actually, there were 9 people, because I don't even watch Ring of Honor. I just know what goes on because of you.
So speaking of which, we will be covering Ring of Honor Final Battle this Friday on pay-per-view.
That card does
look sick. Down podcast. It does. It really does.
All right. After that, we went into... another match, Riho versus Ruby Soho. But honestly, this match was more about Timeless Tony Storm being on commentary. The match was good. It ended with Ruby hit a no future, but Riho kicked out of it. Then Riho countered a Destination Unknown and got caught in a guillotine, excuse me. She was able to fight her way out of it and then hit Soho with a running Meteora to get the win. And like I said, this match was good. And they're building Riho to face up against Tony at World's End, it looks like, for the title. But Tony on commentary was so good throughout this match. She doesn't recognize Ruby Soho, and she thinks she's an imposter because Ruby's hair isn't green anymore. She clearly doesn't remember anything from before the fact, before she lost the title and became Timeless Tony Storm. And she called everybody's name just wrong. She says like Shivani funny. She kept calling Ruby Soho, and she just kept putting the emphasis or the emphasis on the wrong parts of the word,
on the wrong syllables.
Yeah, exactly. And it just made everything so fucking funny. She told Tony Khan to get her close up, and she was just in the camera. She stole everything away from this match, and I'm not hating on that, but she was just so good during this segment that I unfortunately don't want to talk about. Was a pretty solid match.
It was. It was. We can gloss over the match because the real story wasn't the match. But I will say, in regards to the match and in regards to the feud, I really do appreciate AEW acknowledging what happened back in February. Riho going against the Outcasts, getting embarrassed, getting spray painted by them. So that explains why she's gunning for Tony right now. That explains why this matchup with Ruby. What up, Dev? How you doing, bro?
Hey,
Good
Dev.
to see you.
Good to have you back,
so
man.
Yeah, always a pleasure. But so I really did appreciate those little references to the past, something AEW never shies away from, and I always appreciate. But yeah, the matchup was fine. It's always so like we talk about it every time she shows up, but it's infectious how much the crowd enjoys Riho, and in turn, it gets me more hype to see Riho. So just good stuff, fun stuff. And I'm looking forward to the matchup with Riho and Tony. I know Tony's going to win. I know this is meant to be another feather in her cap to say she beat another former AEW Women's World Champion. But the first. So it'll be, has she beaten, I'm going to say yes because everyone does. Has she beaten Nyla Rose in this reign?
Not, I don't think as Timeless Tony Storm. Not that I remember.
But it'll just be another feather in her cap, and I'm just happy we have Riho right now for however long we have her.
Yeah, well, at least to the end of the month it looks like. So that's cool. I'm excited for that match. I said a lot last week how much I love Riho, and I think you put it well there when you said the crowd is very excited for Riho, and it becomes very infectious. I think honestly, it starts with that music, man, and it just goes from there.
Oh Riho, yeah, like it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and because she's always so like happy and excited to be there, it becomes infectious as well, and that's why I think everybody loves seeing her. And obviously, she can wrestle very, very well. So that matchup, on the 30th is going to absolutely slap. I also, again, want to point out this happened last week. Women, top of the hour, 9 o'clock slot. Tony Storm,
we're taking it.
I know it was just the one segment, but they're getting a prime time slot with Timeless Tony Storm. Obviously, you got to put your biggest star in prime time there, but if we're gonna get the one, you might as well make it a good spot on the card instead of, again, the death slot they're usually in. So I think Storm is actually helping pull up this division, and this is why we all said, or even though I didn't want it because I'm a Sheeta guy, but this is why we all said I said it made sense. I just didn't want it, but she's clearly helping bring the division up, to a higher point, at least in the scheduling of the episodes. Okay, so after that, we had a quick Wardlow promo package. Spoiler alert, he's still mad at MJF. And then we moved on to our first Continental Classic Gold League of the match, which saw Rush face off against Jay Lethal. This was actually a very quick match. I think they said at the end of it, it was the quickest match so far of at least the Gold League side of things, if not the entire tournament. So it ended with Lethal dodging a bull's horns in the corner and setting Rush up for the lethal injection. However, Rush was able to counter that into a sleeper hold and forced Lethal to tap out. Obviously, last week was how Rush lost as Mox got him into a sleeper hold. So it actually kind of leads me to think maybe Rush, quote unquote, no selling the hold last week may have been more of a storyline than just us speculating that he just no sells everything. Even though he does. Anyway, this gives Rush six points, and at the time kept him alive in the tournament, while Lethal unfortunately remained at 0. And after the match, Jeff and Karen Jarrett, along with Sanjay Dutt, they all came out to console Lethal after his loss, but he was obviously very, very frustrated. So, James, like I said, this was a very quick match, and I think it is continuing, especially with the stuff after, continuing to lead into this storyline that Jay Lethal has been relying on, Jeff Jarrett and the rest of the slapnuts a little too much, and now we're seeing that he maybe just can't cut it without them there, and perhaps leading to a breakup in the future.
I said it last week. I am very much anticipating the return of babyface Jay Lethal. I think he is a character that is very easy to get behind and very easy to cheer, whether he's doing Ric Flair impersonations or going around as Black Machismo Jay Lethal. Oh yeah. I love Jay. I think he's a great talent and a great worker. And we've been saying this losing streak, this losing pattern he's found himself in the Classic is definitely storyline based, and it's definitely going to lead to something no matter what. We saw that little bit of tension with the Slapnut family. Who knows? Who knows? I expected him to lose this week. I expect him to lose next week. So we'll see about that. Roosh, I think Danny said it best last week. Yeah, the no selling was definitely part of the story of the match, and it was definitely something to push Roosh forward for this week. The problem is Roosh is not the person to do that when he's always no selling.
Right.
So it doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel like, wow, he really did get caught by Moxley. It just feels like a guy who didn't want to sell a finish and didn't want to sell that he got beat. And I don't care. Like, maybe this was an audible to pull off from how he acted last week. So they had him do something like this to capitalize on it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't even particularly care. I'm just more upset that Jay Lethal's obvious and necessary loss keeps Roosh in the Continental Classic even a little bit longer.
Yeah, it was spoiler alert. It was only for like another 30 minutes, but yeah, it was Sky Blue is a heel and still gets cheered and won't be mad if Jay Lethal gets face turn. Well, Sky is, unless I missed a full blown heel turn from Sky, she's been still face, but almost like just in the middle. She hasn't really been anything.
She's been more heel than face.
Yeah.
And she definitely had that big turn with the character change. But I'd say she's more heel than face. But yeah, she's still dipping her toes in the tweener pool. But I think fans are into her for a lot of reasons, and I'm not shocked that she's getting cheered for a lot of reasons. And I'm trying to say this very politically correct.
Well, because it's more than just those reasons. There are other reasons.
I have been rooting for Sky for a long time now because her work in Ring of Honor has really opened up my eyes to how good she could be, her potential, and I'm glad that it translated to AEW, even with the character change that came in AEW. So I hope a lot of people can recognize that. I hope a lot of people can recognize her talent and her potential. So yeah, I get it. And hey, look, we all cheer for who we want to cheer for and boo for who we want to boo. But we do try to honor the roles of face and heel in AEW and I guess WWE now too. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad if Jay Lethal turned face either. I'm waiting for it. Thank you for commenting, Chris. Sky Blue, future champion. Hell yeah, yes. Chris. It's a matter of when, not a matter of if.
Yeah, and Sky is very young, so she does have a lot of time to, become a future champion. But I agree with you with Jay Lethal. He's been with the Slapnuts for a while now, and I think the face turn is obviously coming. I don't want to say needed, but it's definitely going to keep his character fresh.
Oh,
As
yeah.
you mentioned, he's very easy to root for, and it does give us the opportunity, since that old bag of bones is floating around AEW at the moment.
Be nice to Karen Jarrett.
I was going to say he can possibly interact with Ric Flair one last time, which would be a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris. Sky Blue is indeed 24. So, like I said, she's very young, and she has a whole bright future ahead of her. All right, let's move on to our next Continental Classic Gold League match, which saw Switchblade Jay White against Mark Briscoe. I will cop to this. I had Switchblade on upset alert for the match. I was unfortunately wrong, even though I thought I was going to get something when Mark hit a froggy bow like right off the bat. But Switch did very smartly, rolled out of the ring, and we had a fairly normal match from there. We had the match end with Briscoe countering a Blade Runner into a just a suplex. And then he lined up White for the Froggy Bow. As I mentioned, he had already hit that at the start of the match. Briscoe jumps off the top, but White is able to get his knees up for the counter, and then he is able to hit a Blade Runner for the win. This gave Switchblade 9 points, and thereby mathematically eliminates Roosh, and Briscoe, unfortunately, stays at 0. So, James, I know you're clapping here because you thought that this was Briscoe's best match of the tournament so far. I guess we're not going to get Flair and Omega. Iron Lion, maybe, maybe not. I doubt it. I genuinely don't think Flair would get cleared to wrestle in AEW.
Apparently, he is cleared to take bumps. According to Flair, he's got a medical note from his doctor that allows him to take bumps. He's allowed to do it.
There's a big difference between take a bump and wrestle a match, though.
He admitted that he doesn't think AEW would clear him for a match, but he is medically cleared to take a bump. But that said, I think a V-trigger from Kenny would literally dissolve Flair into dust.
That's a good point.
But hey, maybe we get it through proxy. Maybe Jay Lethal is Flair's proxy.
Perhaps. Also, I would just randomly point out here as we're talking about Flair, Tony Khan said Flair is paying them to show up because
that was a very interesting bit that he put out there. Yeah.
So maybe, he's technically not under AEW contract. They would have to probably sign him to a different contract in order for him to probably take any sort of bump or at least sign a liability waiver. Iron Lion, everybody says Omega can have a 5-star match under any circumstances. Let him prove it.
I think Kenny would have an easier time with an actual broomstick.
Well, Kenny works better with small children than older people, and we've already seen that. So his match with that kid back in the day was probably better than his match with Jericho.
I think Kenny's wrestling experience with blow-up dolls is a little bit different than Ric Flair's experience with blow-up dolls.
I wanted to take that further, but I was like, you know what? Yeah,
we don't want to get taken off. But I'm actually sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, we got very sidetracked here, but the question I had posed to you was, or not even a question, but what I said was, I think you said that you thought this was Mark Briscoe's best match of the tournament so far. I think you said in our chat that it was his fastest paced match.
I said that was Jay White's.
It was Jay's fastest paced match.
Jay is they've commented on it a lot in the tournament. He's a very defensive wrestler. He wrestles a slower paced match. He tends to wrestle from behind to come back for the win. And this was not that. This was a fast-paced, non-stop match. Like you said, Mark hit that Froggy Bow right out the gate. He hit that Cactus Jack elbow drop onto the outside. And both guys never really let up. And I appreciate matches. I appreciate when wrestlers can wrestle different styles of match. It still feels like their match. It doesn't feel like all of a sudden they're wrestling as somebody else, but they're using their talents. They're using their know-how to change paces for matchups. And I think Jay is one of the best at that because this match was so different than his match against Swerve, which was a highlight of the tournament. This match was so different than his matchup against Jay Lethal. So I really think Jay is one of the most versatile wrestlers today in terms of ring work. And this match really highlighted that. Again, not shocked at the outcome. Jay was, I said it before, this side of the tournament was sort of a 3-horse race with Moxley, Swerve, and to a lesser extent, Jay White. And of course, Jay is still in it. So it makes sense. And I think Mark is going to get his first win next week. His first and only win will be next week against Jay Lethal, I believe.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
So, fun matchup. I enjoyed the reversals. I enjoyed it's kind of crazy how the Blade Runner, Jay could almost hit that out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's very good at just being able to pull it off from, as you said, out of nowhere.
Like, it's not quite an RKO out of nowhere, but it's near there, in my opinion. So great stuff from these two, and let's see if Jay can hold on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And pardon my distraction, I'm trying to look for the final standings here as we line it up. I do know, and I guess, a little bit of a spoiler for the final match. Lethal versus Edge in the future would be a good matchup, Iron Lion. But I do know that, as you mentioned, the final match for Briscoe is against Lethal. And then because Swerve beat Switchblade, he has the tiebreaker. Swerve does. So if both Swerve and Switch win next week and finish with 12 points, then Switchblade would be out. He would not make it to the final.
Isn't it the final? So, but if they have if people are tied in the final two, and how do you have a final two then? Because somebody's always going to go over the other guy.
Well, no, it's just head to head, and they all face each other once. And then,
but that's my point. But if they're in this instance, if they're tied, you just don't have a final two. That you don't have the matchup.
I'm saying like if there's three, if Mox is at the top and you have Swerve and Jay White tied to 12 behind him, then Swerve would go on instead.
I understand. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
If you have the three-way tie, then I don't know, but. Which actually does pose something interesting because Jay White faced off against Moxley. I finally found it in their final match. So if White beats Mox and then Swerve ends up beating Roosh, then we have a three-way tie at 12, and then that's a whole mess.
Damn.
So yeah, that would be that'd be a Rochambeau. I assume they're not going to book themselves into that corner.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Swerve is beating Roosh. And then you probably have going to lose to Mox.
Yeah, I think that would be the plan there. And then you have Mox and Swerve move on, and Swerve moves on strictly due to the tiebreaker because he beat Switch, and as they would be tied at 12 points apiece. So I think we have a pretty good lineup of matches next week too. Mox versus Jay White's going to be very cool, very interesting. Nope. Have we gotten that in New Japan or anywhere else? I feel like we probably have.
Jay White versus John Moxley?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it was in a multi-man match. I don't think they've wrestled one-on-one yet.
Okay. So still, I think it's going to be cool to have them one-on-one, even if they have interacted before. Maybe we even, get a little callback to that. I'm sure Excalibur remembers because the man's encyclopedia. And maybe they bring that up. But yeah, I think this was back to the match. I think it was good. I did enjoy the faster pace. I think, the psychology of it was because Briscoe came out right off the jump and hit that froggy bow. Switch had to turn it up a gear because, Briscoe was going at such a fast pace. I think he thought he wouldn't have been able to sit back, use his cardio, and outlast. He probably thought he had to get this done and match Briscoe's pace because Briscoe was just going to keep going and keep coming and keep coming. And if he was coming that fast, that Jay thought he probably wouldn't have been able to outlast him and would have got caught early. So good ring psychology, good match, and once again, a very good match in the Continental Classic. We had, actually, I missed this. We did have a quick Moxley versus Strickland promo package before this match. And then after this match, we came back from commercial with a promo for the Blackpool Combat Club versus FTR and Mark Briscoe at Ring of Honor Final Battle. And James,
exciting matchup.
Give you a couple of minutes here to sell not only this matchup, but the pay-per-view in general so that people can come watch us review it on Friday after the pay-per-view. So
no pressure. No pressure. This matchup is 100% to honor Jay Briscoe, who has passed away. I believe, unfortunately, we're approaching a year at this point. This matchup doesn't need a lot of hype. You have 6 of the best competitors in the world. You have 3 members of the Blackpool Combat Club, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and Claudio Castagnoli, a trio we don't typically see wrestle all that much together. Usually one of these guys is getting subbed out by Wheeler Yuta. So very excited to see those 3 team up against FTR, one of the best teams in the world, teaming with an opponent, a teammate that was an opponent at the last final battle, which was one of the best matchups in Ring of Honor history. FTR claims it's their best match ever. Their 2 out of 3 falls match. Wait, well, no, not 2 out of 3 falls match. I'm sorry, the dog collar match. So
they were both really good.
They were the entire trilogy was great, but yeah. And very exciting to see that. Very excited to honor Jay Briscoe. And the pay-per-view as a whole is exciting because there's an air of change with the pay-per-view. Unfortunately, due to the Continental Classic, the World Heavyweight Championship won't be defended. But the main event will be Athena defending the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship against little Billie Starkz. There is a Ring of Honor and AEW have put out a 3-hour video highlighting the history of Billie Starkz and Athena. I highly recommend you go watch it. It is very in-depth and it is very informative, and it is truly one of the better programs that has happened this year in professional wrestling. So go watch that and then go see the culmination of it this Friday at Final Battle, something again we will be covering here at the pay-per-view.
In addition, you can split it up. You watch when we're done here, go watch an hour and then watch an hour tomorrow and then watch an hour Friday before the pay-per-view, and then you're well caught up.
Exactly.
So you don't have to sit there for 3 hours.
This man, am I pointing right? I don't know.
Yeah, you go.
This man knows time management skills, guys. But great. Billie Starkz should be the new Ring of Honor Women's Champion. I think you're right. I think she will be. She will be, Chris. But time will tell. Athena has been.
You're also being very selfish because you want Athena on AEW, so she's on TV every week.
Athena is having the run of her career right now. Unfortunately, not enough people are watching it. I would love to see her in AEW. I would love to see her really shake up that division. And I think she has done all she could in Ring of Honor, and I think Billie is the right person to take the title off of her. So good timing all around. In addition to the world title not being defended, the TV title has been vacated by Samoa Joe, and I believe we're going to be crowning a new TV champion. James does want you to watch Ring of Honor. He really does want you to watch Ring of Honor Final Battle. And the tag team championships are up in the air because MJF and Adam Cole's injury has kept those titles up in the air. Something Tony Khan has admitted he's thought about stripping the championships off them. So
wouldn't that be Stokely's job?
Everybody's got a boss, even Stokely.
Fair.
I want Athena on AEW TV. Preaching to the choir here, Chris. Preaching to the choir. So yeah, Ring of Honor has definitely been in a weird place with their champions the last few months, close to a year. I believe that's going to change moving forward with this pay-per-view. I think this pay-per-view Final Battle, which is typically one of their bigger events of the year, is going to be a very transformative event for the company and for the roster. And I think fans are going to enjoy it. At the very least, you're in for some really great wrestling. Like I said, the Blackpool Combat Club, Athena, the Briscoes, sorry. Mark Briscoe, FTR, Keith Lee.
Aren't we getting Hijo del Vikingo against Black to Roost for the AAA Mega title? I think they announced that tonight. For the record, we're starting to put this out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and stuff. So if you guys want to listen to us, you can go there. I'll start putting the link in the description. For the podcast audience, James's hands just fell into his face, and now he is borderline passed out and fanning himself because, he has the vapors.
I was just going to say, I got myself a case of the vapors. Wowza. Guys, if you follow me on the Gym Pack Zone every Thursday as I cover Impact Wrestling, TNA Wrestling, you guys know I am a gigantic fan of Black to Roost. El Hijo del Vikingo has been one of the fastest rising stars in professional wrestling, Lucha Libre. If that match is definitely happening, I'm going to explode. I'm going to explode. So, yowie wowie. And you tasked me with the job of selling this pay-per-view to our audience. You just doubly sold me on the pay-per-view that I was already going to watch. So thank you, Rev.
You're welcome. Iron Lion back in the chat here real quick. Thank you. Would you guys want Brian versus Pac? And I don't remember if we've gotten that yet or not. But the answer is absolutely.
We might have gotten it on the indies prior to either man really being a big presence in WWE and then AEW.
We ever get Daniel Bryan versus Neville?
Neville? No, we never did. There was literally no overlap.
Wow. Okay.
So give me that matchup. Pac makes Bryan look frail.
Pac makes a lot of people look frail.
Very true. But I would be very much into that matchup. Athena will hold Ring of Honor Women's Championship for 370 days by Friday. That is no small feat. Granted, the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship hasn't been around that long in comparison to the rest of the company, in comparison to a lot of other women's championships, but that is still quite the accomplishment. And her name deserves to be at the top of the list. She has dominated the Ring of Honor women's division for a very long time now.
She's been carrying that company.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a knock on anybody else in the company. That's not a knock on Samoa Joe. That's not a knock on Eddie Kingston. That's not a knock on Claudio Castagnoli. That's not a knock on anybody. She's just that good right now.
Yeah, and the champions have been really good. And I'm sure the wrestling has been too. It's just she is there every week.
Yep.
And she's the top champ because a lot of the times the world champion or the TV champion of late and the tag champs and sometimes even the pure champ, they're on AEW television. They're not necessarily on Ring of Honor television. So she is the top champ who's there every fucking week in and week out. And yeah, it's her company, at least until maybe Friday.
All right, before we get into this, Iron Lion, is Dustin Rhodes still in AEW? As of now, yes.
Yeah, he was in the Battle Royal a few weeks back for the Dynamite Diamond Ring.
As of now, yes. Would not be shocked to see him leave sooner than later. Would not be shocked to see him join Cody in WWE. I'm not clamoring for that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, James, was Chris's comment correct about Roxanne? Or
yes, yeah, Roxanne. Back then, she was Roxy.
Oh, right, I remember her. Okay, she was the first Ring of Honor women's champion. That's cool.
Well, she was the first one of like the new era, I believe. I don't think she was the first ever. Hold on.
Oh, like the Sinclair era when they bought them, and then that whole mess started. That was a very weird era. While you're doing that,
she was the first one. Like she won it in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to pull back up Eric's / producer boys. Are we keeping the kayfabe that Eric and producer boy are different people? I feel like we break it all the time.
I don't know if he ranks for like Sami Zayn, El Generico status.
Those are two different people. What are you talking about? Anyway, Eric says that he had no idea this was Winter is Coming. They got to do better with the marketing. And Eric, that is something we talked about at the top of the show, but I will gladly rehash really quick. You're right. They didn't do any promotion that this was Winter is Coming. There wasn't really anything around the ring, different aprons or different coverings for the barricades. The only real thing you saw was on the back of the Tron. And I think they brought up the history of Winter is Coming once throughout the entire night.
Yep.
When they mentioned that Kenny won the title at Winter is Coming, and when Don Callis helped screw over Moxley, and then Shivani made a remark about Kenny's current status with Don Callis and his family, and they mentioned Sting debut, and that was it. That is literally the only mentions we had of Winter is Coming. So very weird. I don't know why they did it that way, but as we mentioned at the top, we do think that the increase in pay-per-views might decrease the value of these branded dynamites. Chris LeClaire coming back with another cool stat. Mercedes Martinez is the shortest reigning Ring of Honor Women's Champion for 119 days. I saw her a week before she came back because they were taping Dark in Bridgeport, and I may or may not have spoiled that. So you're welcome, everybody. And Eric coming back here once again. He misses every 3 weeks. Was a special episode, even though it was getting a little ridiculous. And yeah, there was a couple of points there where it was like almost every week. I think they ran one time. It was like, I think, was it Fight Forever or something? And then whatever they used to call it. And then it was a Fight for the Fallen. And they did like 2 weeks of the one thing and then a Fight for the Fallen 3 weeks in a row. It was a whole lot there. But I liked it better when it was quarterly. And then we had the branded Dynamites every 2 months or so. But again, I think with the increase in pay-per-views, we're not going to see these as much, and perhaps they're not going to be as important.
Going back to just an older comment, we will acknowledge this later on.
Yeah. The podcast audience, the Hung Bucks are the Devil Group, according to Eric. We'll bring that back up in a few minutes, but we'll see.
Rhodes versus Sting retirement match that ends in a draw. No offense to Dustin Rhodes, he is a legend. I do not want that to be Sting's retirement match.
No.
Let's see, was there anything else? Iron Lion, are there any wrestlers that haven't been in AEW or WWE that could be exciting signings for next year? That's actually a very great question that we could get into in a separate video. We plan on doing a end of year video where we sort of get into the state of professional wrestling, and I think we could answer that there. I can tell you right now, though, I am pushing very hard for Friends of the Pod, the main event, to sign with a major sooner than later. They are killing it on the independent scene, and I would love to see them get acknowledged with a big contract. They've more than earned it, and stay tuned, God willing.
Yeah, no, we interviewed them. We interviewed Jay Lyon, back. What was that? Almost 2 years ago now. Wow. And he was a lot of fun. You can go see that video on our YouTube page. You're here. You probably it's a couple of you on Facebook, but yeah, you can go check that video out on our YouTube page. It was really cool to talk to him about where he was in his career at that point, everything he had done, and we wish them well. Whether they go to AEW or WWE, they're going to absolutely kill it.
Or TNA.
Or TNA, yeah, they could go to TNA as well. They're going to do a great job out on the indies. But all right, let us finally get to the main event, which was our final Continental Classic Gold League match of the night. We saw Jon Moxley face off against Swerve Strickland in a very, very good match. I just want to quickly shout out Mox's cutter off of that Swerve barrel roll that he did. Yep. That was an awesome counter. We are on all audio platforms.
We did mention that already. We did.
Yes. We will be providing those links shortly. I haven't gotten them yet. Eric, if you could put them in the chat or something, thanks. Anyway, I'll skip to the end of this match here where Swerve started laying in both the BCC-style stomps and then hammer and anvil elbows before hitting a last call on Moxley heading up to the top. As Swerve is up there setting up for the Swerve stomp, Mox comes up and shoves him off the top to the outside. It is important to note here that Swerve's shoulder has been bothering him from previous matches, and Moxley had been working it over, so he hit his shoulder when he went down. It's also why he hesitated when he got to the top. And because he hit his shoulder when he went down, it took him a while to get back in the ring. Mox actually was willing to win by countout, but Swerve was able to beat the count. However, when he got back into the ring, he was immediately hit by a stomp, with a stomp by Moxley, and was able to kick out of that. Moxley then locked in a sleeper hold and transitioned into an arm bar, but Swerve was able to get to the ropes. And then Moxley, in his frustration, went outside to get a chair. He starts to come back in, but Swerve intercepts him, eventually setting up Moxley to be hit with a Swerve stomp while Moxley was seated in the chair. And then Swerve actually did a split when he landed. And I'm very glad he didn't tear his groin or something because that looked pretty rough. Swerve then got Mox back into the ring, and he hit another Swerve stomp, but Moxley somehow kicked out of that. And Swerve then got Moxley up for, I think it was a JDL driver, I think Excalibur called it. But Moxley was able to counter into a roll-up, and he ended up grabbing Swerve's trunks for leverage, to keep Strickland down for the win. So not only did Mox cheat, Swerve's shoulder was clearly up. And I don't know if that was intentional, either even further dirtering Moxley's win, or it was just an accident. And maybe it's something they work into the storyline, because this was such an unclean pin for Moxley. But either way, it was very obvious. I'd be surprised if we didn't see them do something with it. So, as we talked about earlier, this moves Moxley up to 12 points, which all but assures him advancing. Excalibur said it would take some crazy, crazy scenarios. As we mentioned, you could get the three-way tie at the top with Switchblade beating Mox and Swerve beating Rush, and everybody has 12 points. And Swerve stays at 9, again with the tiebreaker over Jay White. So, James, this was a match everybody was really looking forward to over two guys who are, well, I don't want to say Moxley's red hot, but he's always such a big, big draw. Swerve is obviously red hot, and we had this clash of the Titans here, and Moxley comes out on top, albeit, he had to resort to some underhanded tactics to get the W.
He did, and I'm not shocked. By all accounts, the Blackpool Combat Club are still technically heels, right?
Yes. So we just all love Moxley.
I'm not gonna. We love all of them.
You're true.
Even maybe Wheeler Yuta, maybe.
I like.
I am fond of him as well, but this match delivered. Swerve didn't feel out of place in this match. It wasn't Jon Moxley's next victim. It was two heavyweights slugging it out. And Swerve feels like, how many signs were in the crowd for Swerve? How hot was the crowd for Swerve? And that's not to say they weren't hot for Mox. They were. But he has ascended to another level, has Swerve. And it's been extraordinary to see. The match itself was great. Really, very shocking to see Mox kick out of the Swerve stomp.
2 Swerve stomps. Yeah, even being on a chair.
They really, really, really painted these two men as two guys who would give it their all to win, and Swerve got screwed. Really. He got screwed. Moxley being the wily veteran, the crafty veteran who takes advantage of the rules, and Swerve got caught this time. But we've been saying it. Swerve's true victory will not be winning this tournament because, quite frankly, he's above winning the Ring of Honor title. He's above winning the New Japan Strong title, and he's above winning the Continental Classic Championship or whatever it's going to be. So I think this has, I know he's not eliminated from the tournament, but at this point, I don't think he's going to win it. So I'm very intrigued with how they're going to spin him. He's wrestling who next week? He's
got Rush.
I think Rush is going to no-sell another loss. So I very much enjoyed this. I think these guys had more chemistry than I thought they'd have. And I love the beginning of Swerve out wrestling Moxley. Something that we're not used to seeing Swerve do. We're used to seeing him hit the strikes. We're used to seeing him do some high flying action. We're used to seeing him do a lot of different things. But to out wrestle somebody is not necessarily new, but it's not his usual. So this was a really fun, different matchup. And I don't want to say the better man won, but the craftier man definitely did.
Yeah, and this protects Swerve a lot, obviously. Yes. And they do such a terrible job of explaining this, but assuming I am right and that the top 2 people advance and then we have a semis and a final, it appears that Swerve will be facing Mox again. So
theoretically, we got to see what happens next week because it could be Jay White.
That 3-way tiebreaker would get very screwy. So because
there's still the possibility of a tie, a double count out tie, or a time limit draw.
We got very close to that here. There was only about 3 minutes left in this match when Moxley ended up winning.
So this is far from being set in stone in any capacity.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Swerve tie with Roosh or Mox ties with Jay White, then yeah, you only have one of them being a 10 and the other one being a 12, and who knows? Mox would be at 11 if he tied, so he would advance presumably in second. Yeah, there's a lot of screwy math that we can have on this side of the bracket in the final week. So it's going to make for a very intriguing final week because we have two very important matches, and then the third one is not necessarily important, but it's for a lot of pride because both of those guys have 0 points.
Yep.
And it's assuming everything we think is going to happens. It's going to set up a very good storyline for Jay Lethal, if he comes away with a loss and no points in this entire tournament. So, like you said, James, this match 100% delivered. It was just two juggernauts going at it, and the guy who cheated ended up winning. And that's all there is to it. But and then quickly to end the show, even with the overrun, we had to get backstage because we cut to backstage and we see in the parking lot Hangman Adam Page is being assaulted by the Devil's masked men. Hangman was able to fight them off momentarily. Even
he held his own. He held his own for a good while.
Even using his very heavy suitcase to defend himself. But eventually the numbers game caught up with him and they were able to take him down.
The biggest member was the one to do it.
Yeah, even after he got hit with the suitcase. Yep. Eventually, you see that there's a car in the background, and the Devil steps out of the car and gives a nod, and the members of this, of the assailants take Page and powerbomb him into the windshield of the car. So, James, I know you've had a lot of theories, and you've been holding them in all night. Please go ahead. Who do you think is the Devil and the assailants?
So, first of all, this confirms that Swerve isn't the Devil.
Big news.
Unless he had somebody wearing the mask for him, which I don't think is the case, Swerve is canonically now not the Devil. That is a very big player to take off the board in this conspiracy. As for Eric's comment that the Hung Bucks are the Devil's group, where is that? How? The Hung Bucks are Hangman and the Bucks, and I don't think Hangman could put himself through a car. So I don't think it's the Hung Bucks.
Unless he has telekinesis or something.
I am starting to be of the belief, and the numbers don't really work out for this. I got to figure it out. So maybe I am wrong. But there are now 5 members of this team. There's
the Devil and
the Devil,
assailants.
The Devil, the big guy, and then 3 others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 2 others?
I think it's 3.
So you have 5 members. I think we, like, for the longest while, we were under the assumption that the assailants were going to be Wardlow, Roderick Strong, and the Kingdom, Matt Taven and Mike Kanellis. Wow. Mike Bennett. WWE brain right there. Whoa.
You know what's funny? I usually call him Kanellis as a joke, and I was like, doesn't he mean Bennett? Assuming you were right, and you weren't right.
Oof, that hit. My bad, guys. But now I don't know how true that is. I think Wardlow is still pretty much a lock. But there is this weird part of me that really does think it's going to be Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era. I think it's going to be Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Now, who that third member is, the pit in my stomach says Jungle Boy Jack Perry, but I don't want him to come back to just be a member of this group. Like, I think I'm safe. I don't think Danny's here, but like, on some level, maybe he should be the Devil.
A lot of people on the internet right now think he's the Devil because we had this spot with the broken glass. Obviously calling back to everything that happened at All In. There was the broken glass incident last week with the bottle. Obviously, the Acclaimed got sent through a pane of broken glass when they got assaulted. A lot of people are connecting these broken glass dots, and they think Jack is the Devil.
It's certainly possible. And you can make a very good argument that he's not the right guy for this. But you need to capitalize on the kid. If you lost CM Punk for him, you can't treat him like a background player. You're going to have to treat him like a big deal. And him being just another member of the group isn't necessarily the right choice. But I don't want to see Adam Cole in this group and not be the devil, because that wouldn't make any fucking sense either. So I don't know. With every word I say, I convince myself of one thing and then convince myself that something else isn't right. So this is one of the best mysteries I can think of in professional wrestling in a long, long time. And I am very much in for the reveal whenever that may come, whether that's World's End or later on. I think they're doing a masterful job of keeping us on the hook. But we can now rule out Swerve. We can now rule out Hangman. And the list is still there. But I'm going to say it now. I am going to say it now. The Elite fucking suck as friends.
They're not even there.
Kenny was.
Kenny was there. That's true.
Kenny was there. The Young Bucks weren't there. Maybe they're the Devil's assailants. I really don't think so. I don't think that would make any sense. But
I don't think they would do a devil thing. They're good Christian boys.
That they are. But no, I what do I get from being a member of the Elite? Nothing.
You don't even get a YouTube channel anymore.
Not anymore.
Actually, you know what you got? You got all of the Chili's and Wendy's money because you know how to spend it all to buy the channel. So that's what you get. God. Finally.
If I'm Hangman, I don't think Hangman's ever been more alone than he is now. Even when he split up with the Elite, the Dark Order were right there.
Yep.
He's got no one. The Elite suck.
Yeah, they're all being bad friends to each other right now. Kenny's with Jericho. The Bucks are MIA. Hangman is just completely solo. So, yeah, they're all being bad friends. The only one that's a good friend right now is Cutler because him and
Cabana.
him and Colt have been running together and they've been doing great. So, all right, my turn for conspiracy theories.
Please.
At 9:48, right as the match started, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, tweeted out a gif of herself. I still think she's the devil. I think it's her. I think it's Wardlow because her and Wardlow are friends because they train together. And then you could either go with Roderick Strong and the Acclaimed, or you can go with
the Acclaimed.
Not the Acclaimed. Excuse me, Roderick Strong and the Kingdom. Or you could go with. I don't think it's the Undisputed Era guys. I think it's probably Roddy and the Kingdom because they're all really mad at MJF because they all Wardlow's just pissed at MJF, but the rest of them, MJF stole Cole from them. Adam Cole has been seemingly spending a lot more time with MJF than he has with Britt. So, and then because of MJF, Adam got hurt. And I think a few people might find it lame because then you don't have whoever the devil is facing off against MJF for the AEW championship at some point. But I honestly think it would be a great storyline. And you do get Wardlow versus MJF, whether it's for the title or otherwise. You will probably end up getting Roddy as well at some point, just because. But I think Britt would be amazing. Now, maybe a lot of people are saying that the devil is a pretty built person.
Yeah, she's got to be wearing shoulder pads then.
I think that's a pretty thick jacket. I genuinely do think this is Dr. Britt Baker DMD. I think that story just writes itself.
I for the longest time I think I was preaching her before anybody else was. I
stole it from you.
But I don't know what to believe anymore, and that's the mark of good storytelling. That's the mark of a good mystery. I would love for it to be her because then it evens out the numbers of Cole and the Undisputed Era a little bit better. And I'm going to say one thing. I know it's not a great argument, but it is an argument. Wardlow fits in so much better with the Undisputed Era than he does with the Kingdom. Like the Kingdom are a bunch of dorks.
Yeah.
Undisputed Era has always been cool. So I think that would be better for him. But either way, bravo to AEW, bravo to MJF, bravo to everybody involved. They have managed to tell a very compelling story over the course of the last several months, all while drip drabbing us bits of the story and it never feeling dragged out. At least I don't think it's ever been dragged out.
No, not at all. And I mean, this is like some Agatha Christie level mystery shit. Like, we truly don't know who the devil is. We don't even know who the masked assailants are. We have theories, and yeah, we can kind of speculate off of body types from some of them, but we don't know. It could truly be any of the people we mentioned. It could be somebody we didn't mention. And that's the mark of a good mystery right there. We've gotten some red herrings along the way. You know, we had the glass bottle last week, and everyone was like, is it Hangman? Clearly isn't Hangman. You know, you thought it might be Swerve just as a candidate.
Well, that was more Eric. Eric was definitely pushing Swerve. I was thinking it was possible, but I'm very easily manipulated. I was so steadfast in Brit for the longest time, and then I fell and I wavered. And man, there's just so much on the table.
There really is. And like you said, that is a mark of good storytelling. And they haven't leaked this, which I think is amazing. No one knows. Even if somebody does know,
nobody's saying anything.
SRS or Meltzer or whatever. Yeah, nobody's saying anything. And thank you, and please don't fucking say anything. Please. This is going to be way cooler when we all find out at the end of the month or whatever.
It's the only reason why I don't want this story to go too long, that I don't want it to get spoiled. Like, I want it to be done. That way we could have had a beginning, middle, and end to the mystery, even though I could keep going with this for a while.
I feel like if it goes too long, though, even if it does go past World's End, if it gets a little bit too far past that, we're going to start getting annoyed. Like, you know, end it just before we start getting annoyed, because if we do, then we're all just going to be like, all right, then somebody just fucking spoil it. You know,
I think the ideal scenario is that the devil is revealed at World's End, or at the very least, the assailants are revealed at World's End.
Yeah,
and then it culminates at what is it?
Revolution would be the next.
No, Revolution. Revolution. Yeah. So I think that's the ideal scenario at this point.
If you do that, and then the devil works their way up to a championship match against MJF at World's End, that could be interesting. It would eliminate Britt, but it could be interesting.
I will go on record as saying, if there is any woman who is going to be the first woman to win the AEW World Championship, Britt Baker definitely has Tony Khan's ear enough for it to be her.
I don't think it would happen, mostly due to the fact that Tony is very against intergender matches, but
sexism.
But I would assume it eliminates her unless she can gift her title shots to an unrevealed person, or maybe make Adam Cole do it or something, which would be an interesting choice. So I guess you're right. That doesn't necessarily preclude her from being the devil if they do get a title shot, but I think that could be a good route to go should you not want to reveal the devil at World's End.
Yeah.
But either way, there's still a lot of meat on this bone, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see it and talk about it all the way until the eventual reveal. But yeah, that was Dynamite. And James, I think we said at the top of the show, even though it was Winter is Coming, it didn't necessarily feel like that. But the show was very good. It was a very wrestling-heavy show. But all of the matches delivered. And even I don't want to say all the promos delivered. Honestly, the one extended promo is the one thing that didn't really deliver. Everything else was great, especially the main event and even the post-main event stuff.
Absolutely. Enjoyable show. We're getting closer to World's End. So the pace is definitely picking up. I'm intrigued to see how we're going to get back to regular Dynamites after next week, because we're going to lose out on the Continental Classic structure. So it'll be interesting to see how they revert back to Dynamite's typical booking. I was very surprised. Admittedly, I didn't have the opportunity to watch Collision or Rampage. I was very surprised there was no follow-up with Christian and Edge this week. I'm assuming it got acknowledged on one of those shows.
It got acknowledged tonight, very briefly.
Yeah. But I meant like maybe a Christian promo or some type of package to deal with it, but whatever. I enjoyed the show, and I wish they had leaned in heavier to the winter is coming motif.
Yeah, they usually at least change the Tron a little bit instead of just slapping the logo over their usual Tron.
You know, there was some snowflakes. There was like some snowflakes in the graphic.
Dude, the first winter was coming and actually fucking snowed because Sting came out.
Right?
they could have done it a little bit more, but
those were the days.
Maybe part of that was because there was the Continental Classic and almost the Continental Congress, Continental Classic, and they had a lot of matches they had to get through, including the Blue League one for whatever reason, whether that was a scheduling conflict or otherwise. I think clearly you saw that they had a lot of stuff to get through because there were only 2 real promos during this episode. So I don't know. I wish they did lean more into it, like you said, but they didn't. But they still delivered tonight. And hopefully what Tony realizes is that these have been good episodes the last few weeks with the classic rolling. And he does just give us more matches. We're going to obviously have to have a few more promos just to continue to continue to build storylines, but hopefully we continue to get more matches, and it keeps feeling this like OG AEW style of Dynamite that we had back at the beginning. Let's just acknowledge a couple of comments before we get out of here. Iron Lion wants Sting to come down from the rafters for his final match. I would love that.
Yeah, no, I would too.
It's, a lot of people don't really want to do that anymore because of the safety issue, but it'd be cool. I would love to see it. And Chris reminding us that as it is turning midnight here during our taping, there's only 11 days till Christmas. I don't know. I think Hanukkah just ended, or we might still be in the middle of it. I'm not entirely sure.
I think we still have like a day or two.
So happy Hanukkah to everybody. And obviously a very early Merry Christmas and happy holidays to whatever you celebrate. Happy Festivus. That's my go-to.
For the rest of us.
But yeah, we as we get closer and closer to the holiday week, we'll explain more about what's going on with the show and everything. But
yeah,
we'll get there when we get there. And on that note,
I do have one last note, if that's okay.
Okay.
We will be hosting here at the Market Down podcast through our social media channels a couple of giveaways as we get into the new year. We're for TNA's rebrand, which will be on January 13th for the Hard to Kill pay-per-view. I'm going to get in the next week or so. I'm going to start the process of getting everybody ready for a giveaway for various TNA memorabilia, a lot of autographed stuff of different variety. Some autographed pictures, some autographed memorabilia, some ring used stuff. So we expect that very soon. And with CM Punk's eventual upcoming first match back in WWE, as we get some more details on when that will be, we're going to be doing a CM Punk giveaway where we'll be giving away his latest AEW figure, his Supreme figure. Hard to find CM Punk's Supreme AEW figure. We're going to be doing a giveaway for that as well. So stay tuned. If you guys like that, we're going to try to do a little bit more as the year continues. So spread the word and get ready for some fun stuff.
Yeah, we'll give you guys details on how to enter for those drawings at some point. I imagine we're going to probably do a couple of things where if you follow us on various platforms, you'll be entered. And we'll get you those details when we have them. So again, thank you for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. If you want those details, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll continue to give them to you here as we get them on our YouTube page. And obviously, we will be back here every week for AEW Dynamite. We review them this episode every week. Got the Gym Pack Zone on Thursdays, so be sure to check that out if you are a TNA Impact fan. We occasionally do Raws, but Danny is a very tired boy, so maybe we'll get Chad to do them. I think he was live tweeting it last week, so if he's going to do that, maybe we'll just have him come on after the show, and he could take over that, and he doesn't have to do NXTs anymore. We also do, obviously, reviews after the pay-per-views, including Final Battle this Friday, so be sure to subscribe. James will be live, at least James will be live after Final Battle, so you can check out his review of that then. You can also check us out on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Those are in the description below. You can also check us out there, and we have updates for those giveaways as well. And like I said, I imagine those giveaways will involve you following us on those platforms. So you could always jump the gun, get the follow in, and then, you know, you could prove that you follow us when we get to that at some point. So, James, unless you have any final words for us here tonight.
Ho, 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 and I'll see you on Friday. Or tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow for the Gym Pack Zone.
All right. And yep. So be sure to tune into Gym Pack tomorrow night with James Sasanti. So for him and myself, Nick Cummings, thank you so much for watching us here at the Mark It Down Podcast. Have a good night, everybody. And I don't have the video ready. There it goes. See ya.